To no one's surprise, the New Orleans Pelicans fired head coach Willie Green after a 2-10 start to the season. Now, this team is dealing with a bunch of injuries again, but even with those injuries, some of the early season losses that they experienced was still very unacceptable and made this move clear as day. Now, there are a lot of things that the Pelicans need to address as an organization. I think the Willie Green firing is just scratching the surface and should be just the start to a lot of new things happening. But before we get to those other things, I do want to go over the Willie Green era because I think it's important. And it also is funny that at one point this looked promising for the Pelicans and Willie Green. Now, the first year Willie Green coached this team was the 2021-22 season, in which the Pelicans went 36-46. And I believe this was the first year of the play-in where the Pelicans got into the play-in, got 2 wins, and were the 8th seed, faced the number 1 seeded Phoenix Suns, took them to 6 games, though Devin Booker played in half of the games. There was no Zion Williamson for the entire season and no Zion Williamson for the entire playoff series. But it was promising again because this young Pelicans team without their face was able to be really competitive against a really good Phoenix Suns team at the time. The second season, you get Zion back for 29 games, in which the Pelicans go 42-40. They're a play-in team again, and they ultimately lose to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then the third year of Willie Green's tenure is the best year for him as a coach, where Zion actually plays 70 games. The Pelicans go 49-33. They ended up being the 7th seed, and they got swept by OKC in that first round. And now, last year, Zion only plays 30 games. They go 21-61. You trade Brandon Ingram, who missed time. Herb Jones missed time. Trey Murphy missed time. Very, very big mess of a season for the New Orleans Pelicans altogether. And then obviously we come into this season going 2-10. And again, Zion plays half of these games. When Zion did play, the New Orleans Pelicans were 69-65, 4 games over 500. And then in totality, Zion played in 134 games out of 328. So he missed 194 games. He missed more games than he played, almost missed 200 games. For Willie Green, I thought overall he did a really good job with what he was given. Now, last year, 21-61, there's nothing you can really say about the Pelicans in a positive from the organization to the coaching staff or anything. That was a very tough season for them. And I think this year was just an extended portion of last year. Some of the decisions that I've seen Willie Green kind of make this season, I don't know if he checked out. I don't know if he was just exhausted with the whole situation. I understand the fan base kind of is exhausted with everything. And the firing of Willie Green for a lot of people is like, okay, let's get that out of the way. And now we can get to some real deep-rooted issues because we know every organization order of process is to say, oh, it's the head coach. Let's bring in a new head coach and let's get some vibes up and maybe, show some flashes and bring some type of excitement. I don't think that's going to work here in New Orleans. The interim head coach is James Borrego, who does his thing offensively from what I know him to be. And so I do think you'll see some offensive, flow that's a little better. They may put up some more points. Right now they have a -13 net rating because they're giving up 121 points while only scoring 108. And there's really nothing as a team that they're succeeding at. Every statistical category around NBA teams, they're in like the bottom half of a lot of them, obviously with a 2-10 record. This is a tough situation because you don't have anything, if you're the Pelicans or a Pelicans fan rather, to cling on to. Willie Green, again, it ends in a very bad look because, again, you go 21-61 and then 2-10, right? Just like that. That is the lasting memory of Willie Green in the Pelicans. Like he's starting Kevon Looney. That's how we remember Willie Green as the Pelicans head coach. When in reality, this team has had, in my opinion, more success than a lot of teams can ask for without having the face of their franchise. Again, Zion Williamson during the Willie Green tenure, just the Willie Green era, almost missed 200 games. This is a team that got to the playoffs twice without really having Zion. And in one of those series, they were able to take a number 1 seed, which I know is years ago, and a lot of fans don't care about what happened 3 or 4 years ago. But I just think as far as working without having your guy, Willie Green did a really good job. And then in the last few years, not only are you working without your guy, you're working without your second guy, you're working without your best defender, you're working without your starting point guard that y'all went out and traded for. Like even this year, you get Jordan Poole now, and you don't even have him. So there was a lot there. Deeper than that, though, for them to go out as a group, as an organization, as ownership, Gail Benson, and to go bring in Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver to make the decisions. And then after this firing, you have the statement of Gail Benson basically saying, hey, I hired Joe Dumars because I believe in him. I believe in his thought process. And so the decisions that are made are going to be Joe Dumars' decisions, basically saying, I ain't got nothing to do with it. I hired him, and he's going to do the job fully, completely, and that's all his decision making. Whatever he thinks and feels, we support and we rocking with it, and we feel comfortable with him leading our direction as an organization. Joe Dumars hadn't had this type of position for a team in a decade plus. Troy Weaver, who also comes with Joe Dumars, the last time we seen him and Joe Dumars, it just wasn't successful, and that's the part to me that I don't really understand right now with a lot of these organizations is like, how do they keep giving power and putting the trust in their team and the future and selling this to their fan base when it just doesn't make sense? If I go to a mechanic who the last 3 cars he touched up weren't improved, he didn't fix the 3 cars that people paid him to fix, I probably wouldn't go to that mechanic. I would probably say, hey, man, your history shows that you really don't know what you're doing. I'm going to probably go elsewhere. And so to constantly see these franchises do this, it's kind of mind-blowing to me. It is. And again, I talk about it a lot with these losing franchises. We need fans to start understanding their position and the power that they have, especially with social media now. We saw the Maverick fans and the outrage that they had as far as the Luka trade, and it definitely impacted some of the decisions that we just saw in the last week or so. I think some of these fans in New Orleans, I think, Sacramento, Charlotte, y'all got to start using your voices, because some of this shit is unacceptable in my opinion. I read an article that said Gail Benson, in her tenure of being lead ownership for the Pelicans, has never gone into the luxury tax. Hey, listen, any NBA owner, if you're going to have a successful team, it is going to cost you. That's the reality that we're in the NBA. And it might have, I can't say because I didn't do the research extensively, and it's a lot of research you would have to go back and see, but it's probably been very hard in the history of the NBA to try to have high-level success and being cheap. In any business, it's going to be relatively tough. Unless you hit a real strike of gold or you hit a real lick. It's going to be very hard to be successful and create a really good product by being cheap. The minute a business scales back to save $1 or $2, the entire production for the consumer takes a hit. It's just like local restaurants. When you have a local restaurant in your town or your city and they try to expand and go national, and so they cut back on costs because now they have a lot of other stores and restaurants that they have to, throw out production to, you're going to see the hit. Like we have something here in Chicago that happened. It was a popular restaurant that was a local thing, just a local phenomenon, and it pushed out nationally. And now a lot of the homegrown consumers are like, hey, the food don't taste the same. And it's like, yeah, because they changed a lot of the products to cut back on costs now that they're trying to expand. And so I just don't understand, an NBA owner being cheap and trying to sell to the fan base that they want to win and put out the best product. It's two things that can't mesh together, and then even the decision of bringing in again Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver, and one of the first moves that they make is to, again, and I know Pelican fans hate hearing this because it's insane how much this comes up, but it's going to continue to come up, to trade that pick for this upcoming draft unprotected to the Hawks to get the 13th pick, which turned out to be Derek Queen, who I'm loving the start to his career that he's having. But again, man, if you have a chance to get one of these top 3 guys that everybody's talking about with this class, and Darren Peterson, AJ DeBonsa, Boozer, it sets you up. It really sets you up. But you don't have that luxury. You're giving it to the Hawks, and now you're losing, and it's not going to have any benefit to it. Whenever you have a season that has a 2-10 start that looks like it's headed to another 21-61 losses, you have 50 plus losses Your fan base should have some type of light at the end of the tunnel that they can get excited for. The best thing in the NBA or in any sport like football and MLB is when you lose, there's something to gain for it. It's like, hey, we lost 60 games, but they saying one of these guys could be generational. They saying one of these guys could be all NBA perennial. They saying one of these guys could be a star. They saying one of these guys could, be the face of a franchise. We potentially have a chance to get one of these guys. So the losing, it's something there for it. There's some benefit. But when you just losing 61 games, 50 plus games here, you're losing about 30 there, you're losing about 30 here in the early portion of the season, and at the end of the year, it's going to be nothing to show for it. How are you trying to sell that to a fan base? And then you kind of double down on it with a statement after the Willie Green firing of, hey, Joe Dumars know what he's doing. I trust him. He knows people. And so he's going to be empowered to make all of these decisions. Even before Willie Green got there was like, 3 coaches in 3 years type situation where Stan Van Gundy came in for a year, and then it was Alvin Gentry, and then you got to Willie Green, like just a revolving door of a mess. And then the last thing that I think you have to talk about is the roster pivot. Because all of the focus now is going to go to Zion Williamson, and I understand it because Zion has just not shown you the ability to be healthy. All of us as NBA fans were excited for this year because Zion, from a stature standpoint, looks really good in his physique. It's one of the best looking physiques that Zion has had, if not the best, since he's been in the NBA. And he played in the preseason. He, was doing 360 dunks, moving light on his feet. I feel like if Zion has played in these 12 games, all of them or majority of them, he'd probably be top of the NBA in steals. Super light on his feet, moving around swiftly, doing the things that we love to see Zion do. And then here it is again, he's only played in 5 of the games, less than half the games. And so I was on the side of like, hey, being patient, seeing it through. And I wanted them to do that the last few years because you didn't have much value anyway. And then seeing him transition his body also was like, oh, yeah, you really got to see this through. But now you're 2-10. Now you fired your coach. Now you don't have your 2026 first round pick in any way because you gave it up unprotected. Now DeJounte Murray is basically out. He'll return at some point. Jordan Poole has been hurt. Last year, Trey Murphy was hurt. I just don't know where you pivot to. I don't know how you bring DeJounte Murray back and try to trade him at the deadline or in the offseason after an Achilles injury. It's like, hey, who wants DeJounte? I don't know how you do that. Based on the way that Jordan Poole has played this year with his contract, I don't know how you move Jordan Poole. You probably was better off just keeping CJ McCollum and allowing him to get off the books. But instead, you go out and get Jordan Poole. I don't know how you move Zion Williamson comfortably, right? Because whoever acquires Zion will get him on the extreme pennies on the dollar. The days of getting 3 or so first-round picks for a Zion Williamson-type talent, the Pelicans just can't do it. Nobody's going to pay that price with the injury history. Nobody's doing that. You're forced to trade Brandon Ingram. I think you may be forced to trade Trey Murphy because out of all of the names, he and Herb Jones are the ones that are going to have the value. It's crazy to say Trey Murphy III and Herb Jones might have more value on a trade perspective than Zion Williamson because I think there's a certain security and availability with those 2 players that other teams won't get from Zion. They're just not going to get. And so when you think about all of this, it's like, yeah, you fire your coach. You're going to lose a bunch of games. But most organizations have a pivot, right? If the Dallas Mavericks decide to pivot, they fire Nico Harrison. They can shut down Anthony Davis for the season. They can trade P.J. Washington. He's tradable. Daniel Gafford is tradable. Najee Marshall is tradable. And they own their pick. There's something there that you can benefit from having a losing season. And then you'll trade Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving in the offseason. Granted, the Pelicans don't have an Anthony Davis or Kyrie Irving. I get it. But it just makes sense. There are some benefits there. There's something where you can convince yourself that some good can come out of that. It's hard for me to do it for the Pelicans. It's hard. The only benefit I see is that they suck this year. You allow Fears and Queen to just go out there. Hopefully Eves Missy can be healthy and he can run out there and you can have some young players getting some reps. But like I think of their players, and I think because of the injuries, because of how cheap the organization is and has been, because of the decision making from up top to empower people that has never shown that they deserve this type of empowerment, as a Pelican fan, whoever's out there, I don't know if you should support this team anytime soon. I think this team has to earn support from here on out. And I think this for a lot of teams. You have to empower yourself as a fan. You have to empower yourself with the money that you're spending to support this team with buying jersey, buying tickets, being active on the team, website and getting hoodies and all that. You have to be very conscious with how you're spending every dollar and cent with the New Orleans Pelicans, in my opinion. When you have an owner that is showing you that they're that cheap and they don't want to invest in it, you don't invest in them. And I guarantee the message will get loud and clear. KB said it on Numbers on the Board the other day. They played against the Los Angeles Lakers. And when you cut to some people shooting free throws or timeout breaks and you get a panel look of the arena, that motherfucker was extremely empty for having the Lakers in town. Now, the Lakers ain't got LeBron James, granted, but it's still the Lakers and it's Luka Doncic. We got to start empowering our voices as fans. The NBA has to get better. And that's an extended conversation for another separate video. But you turn on some of these games on these slates, and we got 6 or 7 games, and only one game is worth watching because a team like the Pelicans are getting beat by 33. I can't imagine being a small town kid who is rooting for this team, and it's like, hey, maybe we can get AJ. And it's like, oh, shit, we traded the first round pick. How do you explain some of this? There's a real issue going on that needs to be addressed. And I'm tired of having these non-basketball motherfuckers in our league steady making it. Like, it bothers me. It bothers me. I talk about fandom all the time, and I think it's perspective. If you want to be deep into fandom, go ahead. But there are a lot of people that go hard for each and every team that's in the NBA. And I don't give a fuck about the Pelicans as a fan, but I care about the fans who go so hard in their fandom. I go on Twitter, I see profile pictures of the players on the teams. I see people wearing the gear. I've seen people with Trey Murphy III jerseys. I see people in the comments of some of the podcasts when we talk about these players, and I see the excitement of when they got Fears and people hitting me up and, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that draft pick? There is a real excitement, a real investment from everyday people in New Orleans rooting for this team. And to see the actions of the people running the team just be bullshit, to me, it is unacceptable. And that's where fandom has to be reverse engineered. Take the same energy you have in supporting the team to not supporting the team. Not because you don't want to do that, but you have to send a message. You have to send a message. And as a guy who would love to be a GM, who tries to put his GM hat on every once in a while, I can't do it for the Pelicans. This is a big-ass mess that I don't know how to clean this up. Most of these situations, again, it's easy. It's like, hey, you just trade your best player, get 3 picks for him, hard reset, suck, get a couple picks, and hey, you get this thing moving. The Pelicans can't do that. You can't go on. Like, if you did this 2K rebuild for the Pelicans, I don't know what you even do. Where do you trade Zion to? Is it even worth trading him at this point? You know what I mean? Like, you probably forced to trade Trey Murphy for Herb Jones. I read somewhere that said, I got it right here, if you want to be heard, you have to be somewhat a disturbance. That's my message to Pelican fans. Love your team, support your team, but at the same time, hold these people who are making decisions accountable. I don't want to disrespect anybody and their intelligence or their job or their work ethic, but I'm telling y'all, man, I am telling y'all, some of these moves that have been made, even me with no NBA experience, no NBA experience, I wouldn't have made some of these fucking moves. I'm telling you. As always, I'm Pee Wee the Plug. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all time. I will see y'all tomorrow. I'm out. Peace.